Professor, certainly these Israeli operations in the West Bank are nothing new, but why all of a sudden this major escalation?
Thank you for having me. This is clearly a direct outcome of the ceasefire deal. The Trump administration was never interested in real peace, in real justice when it comes to the Palestinian people. The ceasefire deal was just part of a way for him to generate, political capital and go to boast to people around the world saying, oh, look, I brought an end to the fighting and that kind of talk. But really, all it was asking Israel to basically lay off Gaza, and they have a free hand to do whatever they want in the West Bank. And the West Bank being the biggest prize for Israel. Israel desperately wants to annex the entirety or a very large majority of the West Bank, and they want to end the prospects of a Palestinian state. And Trump is on board with that, and this is why we are seeing this intensified operation in the West Bank. It is driven to facilitate Israel's annexation of the West Bank.
Well, Israel, for its part, says these operations are aimed at rooting out acts of terror and terrorists. Are you concerned that perhaps Israel could turn the occupied West Bank into another Gaza?
You don't count anything out when it comes to Israel. We are hearing statements from people like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir and others indicating that they do want to see what has happened to Gaza happen in the West Bank, that they do want to annex it. I mean, this is not some,
Wait, so let me just get this clear, Professor. So you believe Israel's ultimate objective is to annex the West Bank?
Absolutely. You don't have to take my word for it. Listen to Ben-Gvir, listen to Smotrich, listen to many other Israeli politicians and polls and so on. There's a clear intention to annex the West Bank. I mean, Israel's official position now is to say there's never going to be such a thing as a Palestinian state. So what does that mean?
The occupied West Bank is it's supposed to be run by Fatah. What is their role? What is their responsibility in all of this?
Right. So Fatah is the most dominant political party within the Palestinian Authority, which has the the governing authority in the West Bank. And right now, Fatah and the Palestinian Authority in general is trying to basically play a game of appeasement with the Israelis to show them that they can be counted on to do Israel's dirty work so long as they get their right to self-determination within parts of the West Bank. But they're fools at this point, because Israel is not interested in giving the Palestinian Authority real sovereignty. They've made that clear. The Knesset has made that clear. Netanyahu has made that clear. We're not just talking about Smotrich now. We're talking about the entire Israeli government has made it clear that they have no interest in the creation of an independent, sovereign Palestinian state. To remind your viewers, just this summer, the International Court of Justice released an advisory opinion saying that it agrees with the majority of the world that states very clearly Israel is carrying out all sorts of policies and has been for decades that make it impossible to reach a two-state solution. So this is not some breaking news that I'm bringing here. The majority of the world sees and understands the reality of what Israel is trying to do to the West Bank, and we see here an intensification of that process.
And of course, the other reality is we have President Trump now in office, and his administration has suggested perhaps something that you just mentioned, that Israel has the right to annex much of the West Bank, home to more than 3 million Palestinians. Professor, talk to me about settler violence and how much emboldened they've gotten because of Netanyahu policies, the Netanyahu administration turning a blind eye, and now with the Trump administration in office, once again emboldened.
And it's much worse than turning a blind eye. There's active support to the settlers by the Israeli government and by the U.S. government, because it stays silent and allows the Israeli government to continue to provide the settlers with economic means and military support and political and diplomatic cover to increase their settler violence against the Palestinians, terrorize Palestinian communities, essentially make life impossible for Palestinians and claim more and more lands that would now come under Israeli sovereignty. So the settlement movement has steadily increased nonstop since the beginning of the peace process. Just keep that in mind. Prior to the 1993 peace process, there was 100,000 settlers in the West Bank. Today, there's over 750,000 settlers in the West Bank, and that number continues to increase. So across the political spectrum in Israel throughout those years, we've seen steady expansion of settlement activity and settler violence against the Palestinians, and everybody continues to turn a blind eye to that in the American government, with the Israeli government fully actively supporting the increase of settlements.
Yeah, even the United Nations says from October 7, 2023 to December 31st, 2024, there were at least 1,800 incidents of settler violence in the occupied West Bank. We're going to keep an eye on this story. Professor Muhannad Ayyash, thank you for your take.
My pleasure. Thank you.